Okay. We are live and in the building. This is Seahawks Magic. And there is a team in the NFL. This is shocking, y'all. This is shocking. An NFL team that hired 7 of 29 coaches with no NFL experience. What? What? Guess which team hired 7 of 29 coaches with no NFL experience? Not this year, not 2025, but last year. That's right, the Seattle Seahawks. And I know that's hard to believe. As I'm saying it, I'm like, I know what? Whoever's watching this, they're going to say, that sounds like BS. Well, I know this because I'm a Seahawks fan. And we hired a bunch of coaches last year, and I added them all up of the ones, all the new coaches and the old coaches, and I checked all their histories. And we hired 7 coaches out of 29 total, and those 7 had 0 years of NFL experience, which puts us at maybe 24% or something, 22% NFL coaches with no experience. Is that not crazy? Is that not shocking? Is that not absurd? Ridiculous? Is it not lunacy? It sure seems like that's a lunatic move to hire 7 coaches with no NFL experience. Yet, somehow, we had 10 wins last year. We were 10-7 with perhaps the NFL's worst offensive line. But I want to talk about this. I want to talk about why this happened. Okay? I want to make sense of what our general manager is doing. John Snyder moved Pete Carroll from the head coaching experience. We can't say that he was fired. Nope. No, let's not say that because that's not what was said. He was transitioned to the front office full time. He was transitioned. He wasn't fired. Well, Pete Carroll didn't spend much time. Excuse me. Pete Carroll didn't spend any time into the Seahawks front office, and he decided this year to go sign with the Raiders. Well, after he decided not to come back in the building because he was rightfully upset after being transitioned, we hired Coach Mac McDonald, and we didn't have much time, and we brought in some other coaches. So let's just talk about that. So we hired, first of all, we hired Ryan Grubb as our offensive coordinator. 0 years NFL experience. He was at UW. They won a national championship. He did a terrific job. He was a local guy. I thought it was a pretty solid hire. Of course, I'd rather have a guy with NFL experience, but I felt like he was qualified, and he was qualified. But yet he had no NFL experience. So then we brought in our special teams coordinator, Jay Harbaugh, out of Michigan. Now, I think he was at Michigan for 8 years. No. He was at Michigan for 8 years. We hired him, he was their special teams coordinator. And he's a pretty good special teams coordinator at Michigan. But we're talking about two coordinators out of 3 that had no NFL experience. Does that not sound like something crazy to do? Don't that sound absolutely crazy? It sounds crazy to me. Yet we did it. Not only that, we had one of the worst offensive line rosters in the NFL. And to add to that, we hired an head offensive line coach, Scott Huff. He had no NFL experience, and he was actually at UW with Ryan Grubb, and it makes sense to hire him because he knew the system. He didn't have much time to prepare. So you kind of bring him in to help implement the system and teach the system, and that makes sense. But 2 out of 3 coordinators have no NFL experience, and your offensive coordinator, knowing you have a horrible offensive line, I mean, that's really rolling the dice there. So you got to start asking yourself, well, why would the wizard John Schneider even do that? Why would he do that? I think that's a good question. Well, let me see. I want to get something on here real quick. Hold on. Hold it. Guess I got rid of it. So let's just say this. So then We hired who? Rob Caprice. Rob Caprice was a defensive intern out of Tennessee, and of course, interns don't have experience, but yet that's another coach on the roster out of the SEC, out of the University of Tennessee, with 0 years NFL experience, and he was one of our coaches. We also got Chris Partridge, our outside linebacker coach. He was out of Michigan. He came in to help install the defense, yet he had no NFL experience either, right? I mean, this is a boatload. When almost a quarter of your coaches don't have NFL experience, there's a reason why. And guess what? We added another guy, Tyson Prince. He was our assistant wide receivers coach out of Sacramento State. Now, that's a Big Sky Conference. That ain't the SEC. That ain't the Pac-12. Or I guess that now with the Big Ten. Or was the Pac-12 back then? That was the Pac-12. No. He didn't have NFL experience. Tyson Prince, our assistant wide receivers coach. And then we brought in a guy named Zach Hill. Zach Hill is a terrific coach, I suppose. He was our quality control offensive assistant coach at Arizona State. He's probably was fantastic. I wasn't there at practice to know, but I do know he had 0 years NFL experience like 6 other coaches. So we got to ask ourselves why. Like, why is it? Why is our general manager so comfortable bringing in so many coaches without NFL experience? And I pondered it, and I thought about it, and I figured it out. It didn't take too long, right? Because when you hire 2 of 3 coordinators with no NFL experience, I mean, that's jaw-dropping. That's almost a fireable offense on paper. I mean, on paper, knowing that you go, yo, man, if this doesn't work out and this falls apart and this comes off the rails this season, like, you might have to fire your GM. You might have to fire your GM because he's making these decisions that are far too risky, right? But it did work out. We had 10 wins. So what's the coaching experience even mean, right? So add to that, remember, our offensive line coach didn't have experience either, our head offensive line coach. And he had a horrible offensive line, and the offensive line played horribly. It was possibly the worst in the league. Maybe there was 1 or 2 other teams that had a worse offensive line, but ours was bad. And then special teams, man. Harbaugh, he didn't do a great job. And he could have been fired. If it wasn't for his last name, if Jay Harbaugh, our special teams coordinator, if his last name wasn't Harbaugh, I'm sure they would have fired him, because our kick returners and punt returners kept fumbling the ball over and over and muffing punts and fumbling balls, where it looked like, to me, I wanted him fired during the season because it was so absurd that he would keep rolling these guys out on the field. I could say, why are they coming back on the field? You can't keep fumbling and then keep returning the ball. Something has to change, and nothing was changing until late in the season, maybe 6 games left. Finally, we got both, our kick returners and punt returner. We got rid of those guys, brought in some new guys, and it got a lot better. And then, I could say outside of the fumbling, actually, Jay Harbaugh did a pretty good job. Our special teams statistically was very solid outside of that. It was good. And so they brought him back. But let's be real, his last name saved him. So, you just look at all that. You go, man, well, that is kind of crazy to hire all them coaches with no NFL experience. That is crazy. But guess what? John Snyder isn't crazy. He's not a lunatic. He had a very specific reason why he hired all those coaches without NFL experience. John never said, I don't care about NFL coaching experience. It doesn't mean anything to me. He didn't say coaching experience, smooching experience. It doesn't matter. College coaching, NFL coaching, what's the difference? Not a big difference there. No, he never said that. And why didn't he say that? Because he's not an idiot. He's not a fool. It's actually quite the opposite. John Snyder is a wizard when it comes to being a general manager in the NFL. So why do you do it? Why do you hire all these coaches? was quite obvious to me. It's because he's got a master plan. Our GM, the Seattle Seahawks GM, John Schneider, had a master plan. And he wanted to reproduce the process that got us a Super Bowl victory, a Super Bowl trophy, and helped us win. One year we won the Super Bowl, and the next year we went to the NFC. We won the NFC Championship and lost the Super Bowl. Let's not talk about that. Lost the Super Bowl. And then had an amazing run where we've had one losing record in like the last 12 years. He wanted to reproduce that process. So he goes, you know what? When Pete Carroll and I were hired at the same time, and we had Pete Carroll and some of his staff members came in and they didn't have, Pete Carroll had NFL experience, but some of these other coaches didn't. And they knew the college recruiting landscape because they had been recruiting high school players and signing college players. And they had this intimate knowledge, this esoteric knowledge of player talent that John Schneider didn't have and other coaches that had been in the NFL didn't have. So Pete Carroll knew about Doug Baldwin. He knew about Marshawn Lynch. He knew about Richard Sherman. He knew about these guys that helped build the LOB, that helped fill out our defense, that helped us on offense. And so we were able to pluck all these gems out of the NFL draft and signing these undrafted free agents that, in Pete Carroll's mind, could make great players for his team, for a system that other coaches overlooked because they weren't coaching in college. So what Schneider did this year is he goes, I want to get some coaches on my team who have recruiting experience, who sat in these living rooms of high school players and helped recruit them onto college teams, onto these college teams. And maybe some of them they recruited, some of them they left unsigned, but they loved who they were. So when John Schneider gets a collection of these coaches with no NFL experience, he's not bringing them in so much just to coach the team. This is why a lot of these coaches that we did bring in got fired. But he also vetted those coaches for prospects, NFL draft prospects that they feel like could go under the radar but be terrific talent. And that's why those coaches were hired. So when it comes to this 2025 draft, I am highly confident that the Seahawks are going to have an amazing 2025 draft. Who knows? We might pull out one or two All-Pros, a couple Pro Bowlers. Who knows what's going to happen? I bet we get 4 or 5 starters out of this draft, minimum. Probably more starters than just 5. I could see John Schneider going back because what he used to do, John Schneider would trade back in the draft. He would trade back. He'd, have that first-round pick, and maybe it was the 14th spot. He'd go, I'm willing to drop back to 22nd to pull, to get an extra, late round, second round pick and a 7th round pick. And I think he's going to go back to that. I would not be surprised to see him do that. I would not see him be surprised. So all these mock drafts, I think, anybody who does a mock draft for the Seahawks this year, I surmise that they're going to be way off base. And a lot of fans, a lot of Seahawks fans, what we're going to do is say, what is he thinking? Nobody had this guy rated here. What is John Schneider thinking? Why would he take this guy? I mean, is he on some funny business right here? What kind of pills is this dude popping? Is he okay? Like, he's been nailing the last few drafts. That's for sure. John Schneider, our last 2 and 3 drafts have been great drafts. But this year, this is what the Seahawks fans are going to say, but I don't know because I didn't see this coming. And how come these other scouts, on these scouting reports, you don't see that these national, online scouting reports, how come you don't hear about how good these guys were? It seems like Schneider is putting too much, pulled them up too high on the draft board. What are they thinking? Well, now you know what he was thinking. He's got this insider knowledge from college coaches who know these players. So if we trade back, don't be surprised. When we draft, when we nail this undrafted rookie free agents, when we nail that one and we get some talent, don't say you didn't know why. Now you know why that happened. When you see, we start to trade back, you know why that's going to happen. When you see us emerge and start to pull these gems out of the draft, now you know why, man. I love me some John Schneider. John, salute to you, bro, because with no risk, there's no reward. And hiring damn near 25% of your coaching staff with no NFL experience is a major risk. That's a major MFing risk. And you took it, John. That's cold-blooded, and I salute you for that. I was scared for my life last year. I ain't gonna lie. I was scared. I go, what are we thinking? Why are we hiring all these coaches with no NFL experience? This is crazy. Yet it worked where we were able to have 10 wins and almost made the playoffs. Now we got a boatload of draft picks. Our big board is probably, man, is going to be something serious when it comes to drafting these undrafted rookie free agents or signing these undrafted rookie free agents. We're probably going to pull some gems out of here too. So as a Seahawks fan, I am highly, highly optimistic about this 2025 draft and this 2025 season. I'm out of here. So please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to have more and better talent for you, and I'm out of here. Later.